Hey y'all, Amelia here from Higher Standards Caregiver Training. I'm here for your weekly 10-minute, 2-minute pet wait. Oh, I'm here for your weekly 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday. I think that might be the first time I've messed it up that I'm aware of, at least. Your weekly 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday here on LinkedIn Live. Hopefully it is the most valuable 10 minutes of free education that you're going to get all week, and I'm delighted to be here to give it to you. As always, this information is for education purposes only. If anything that I say reminds you of anyone specific, anyone you know, and you think that that person might need medical intervention or healthcare intervention from a licensed healthcare provider, then please make sure that that person is getting the correct assessment, evaluation, and intervention, as this is for educational purposes only. Okay. That said, as always, we are going to start with a tip for caregivers. This is a really important one, and I decided to talk about this today because it's an issue that came up a couple times actually in some live trainings that I have recently done with some caregiver groups. And it's so important for caregivers to know about that I really think, this is just some essential knowledge. It's something that really needs to be talked about. Okay, and so what we're going to talk about are wounds. And really, truly, the most important thing that we can do as caregivers, whether it's a family caregiver or a non-medical professional caregiver, the most important thing is to try to prevent wounds, right? And I'll give kind of a general overview on that. I will say, wounds can be a highly complex and complicated topic. There's a lot of information to know and understand about them. And that's actually one of the reasons why, as part of Higher Standards Caregiver Training, there is a full-length course available all about preventing wounds for family caregivers and for non-medical caregivers. But I wanted to give, the most basic kind of foundational information about preventing wounds here now. So really and truly, there are three main ways that people will develop wounds. And often, folks who are developing wounds, they tend to be they might be bedbound, they might have poor mobility, they are not getting around very well, or perhaps they have sensation problems in areas of their body. We talked about that last week, or it could be a combination of all of those things or additional factors. But regardless, there are still three basic ways or three main causes of the formation of wounds. The first one is pressure, and that's because when a pressure is applied to an area of the body for a prolonged period of time, basically what happens is, okay, so you can try this on your own. Take your hand and you can press your hand, and then when you pull your finger away, you will see that the skin has turned white. In fancy medical terms, we call that blanching. And then you'll see that pretty quickly, the skin turns pink again as the blood comes back in there. So when you press down on tissue, that pressure forces the blood out of that area. And then when that pressure is relieved, the blood comes back in. Now, this is really important to understand when we're talking about wounds and formation of wounds, because basically, if you have too much pressure for too long, over a certain part of the body or over any part of the body, that means that blood is going to be pushed out of that area for a long time. Now, blood delivers nutrition, it delivers oxygen, it delivers all of the things our tissue needs to stay alive. So if we have pressure over in our skin or in a certain area for too long, that blood is pushed out for a long time and the tissue starts to degrade and it can die. And that is one of the ways that wounds are formed, through pressure. The other two ways I'll hit on a little bit more briefly. And of course, it's not non-medical caregivers and family caregivers, you don't necessarily need to know or understand that level of detail. It's just, honestly, I just think that that's interesting. And I think that it's always easier. I always want to have more information and understand how things work and not just, be told to do something, but understand why I should be doing it. So anyway, I just like, I'm sorry if I bored anyone. I just think that's kind of, it's always helpful to have more information rather than less. But the other two basic ways, and like I said, I'll keep this brief, that wounds generally are formed are through excessive moisture, the skin staying moist for a prolonged period of time, and through friction or excessive friction. So things rubbing on the skin or against the skin very forcefully or over and over again. So those are, and obviously there can be additional ways that wounds might be formed, but those are the three kind of really common ways that wounds are formed. And by managing those things, we can help really prevent wounds from forming in the first place. But here's the actual, and that was kind of just all information. Here's the actual tip. I know it took me a really long time to get to today. I'm sorry. Here's the actual tip for caregivers. If you are working with someone, if you're caring for someone, if you're caring for a loved one, whoever it is, and you're seeing something that you think might be a wound, or just something that you're seeing on the skin that doesn't quite look right, because wounds can present in a lot of different ways. It could be, the skin can be soft and purple and mushy. It can be red and raw. It could be open. There are so many different ways that wounds might look when you first see them or as they first start to develop. That really the tip is, if you see something that you think is not quite right with someone's skin, don't take matters into your own hands and try to treat it or decide what it is or decide what's going on. That really is a time when it's important to talk to or make sure that a licensed healthcare provider gets involved. So if you are a caregiver working for a caregiving organization, that might mean looking in the care plan and contacting a care coordinator or a member of the leadership team or whoever identifies in that care plan to notify if you see an issue. And of course, if you're a family caregiver, then that might mean that it's time to put in a call to that person's healthcare provider to discuss your concerns as an issue. Because absolutely, wounds are one of those things that can have really significant consequences for someone's health, for their quality of life, and even for the length of their life. And so we want to make sure as non-skilled caregivers, as family caregivers, that we're not taking those decisions into our own hands, that we are, if we see issues with people's skin in any way, shape, or form, that we are reaching out to a licensed healthcare provider in order to get them appropriately assessed and treated, and then following the directions and advice of that healthcare provider. Okay, so that took a really long time to get to that tip. Sorry. I will get to tip number 2 now, which is, of course, as always, for healthcare, or I'm sorry, for caregiving organizations. And this will be quick. Okay. So for any business, it is so important in order to improve your business, in order to grow it, in order to move it forward, in order to make your organization what you want it to be, you have to set goals, right? But sometimes that can actually be really difficult or challenging to do. So I wanted to go over a couple of different guidelines for setting good goals that can really help your caregiving organization move forward. So just 3 quick things for goals to be, really good goals. Goals to be helpful need to be measurable. You need to know, and they have to be measurable so that you can know if you're actually achieving the goals or not, and when you have achieved it. In order to set a different goal, or in order to see if maybe that goal wasn't a good one or it wasn't realistic. You also want to make sure that any goals that you're setting are super specific. And I'll give an example. So let's say you have a goal that you want to increase your client base by 10% over Q1 of next year. That's great. That's a measurable goal. But if you can make it a little bit more specific, it can help to guide your actions and the way that you're going to achieve that goal a little bit better. So for example, to make it more specific, you might say something like, we're going to increase our client base using referrals by 10% in Q1. Again, just because if you can have it be measurable, if you can have it be specific, then that can really help you to sit down and figure out, okay, what actually needs to be done in order to meet these goals that we have, so that your organization can move forward, can grow, can improve whatever it is, whether it's a growth goal, whether it's a quality goal, whether it's a process goal, operations and management, it doesn't matter what it is. Using those kinds of guidelines to help set your goals can be really, really helpful in order to help you actually achieve them. Okay, that is it for me today for 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed it as always. I will be back next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live and ready to go with 2 more tips for caregivers and caregiving organizations. Until next time, I will see you then, and take care. Bye, y'all.